morning, Mike.
Good morning, Austin. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm getting some kind of feedback. Like, do you have everything off volume on your other phone?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you?
Man, good morning to you. And tonight it's fireworks night out on our lake.
That's fun. They had to reschedule that, didn't they?
Yeah, they had to reschedule. It was like we've
Yeah.
had the craziest summer ever, so we've had to do the reschedule on it. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, and we're excited. And that's what's going on in my life. And then my brother's in town from New York, and
Right on.
And that's what I got going on. You got anything fun going on? Sunday dinner with the folks, I'm assuming.
Sunday dinner with the folks, and frankly, just having a nice and relaxing weekend. It was a long week. But the long weeks are the good weeks, right? Because long weeks means that we're helping a ton of people, we're serving the clients, we're helping a ton of agents. We're doing exactly what we should be doing, which is good. Yeah. So to give people kind of a little bit of an update on that, we are still seeing the market slow just a little bit. It's kind of doing a soft landing, if you will, like onto a plateau. Instead of the craziness of the 20 offer situation, we are seeing 2 or 3 or 4, which for us and for our guys has been a good thing. We're already at roughly 20 families where we found homes or helped them get their properties on the market and then sold for the month so far on the 7th. So for us, we're not seeing that slow down as much. What we're seeing is the competition is not as fierce.
Yeah.
Which is allowing a lot of opportunity for a lot of buyers to get out there and actually get the home this time instead of just continually getting outbid.
I'm glad you brought that up because the national narrative, like if you go on, well, look, if you go on like Apple News or if you go on CNBC or Fox News or whatever, there's a lot of narrative about like the narrative switched from like if we looked at the narrative 4 months ago or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, it was just like craziest market ever, craziest housing market ever, housing shortage, inventory, everything, right? And now when you look at the narrative, it's like they're talking about real estate's really slowing down. Now, the truth of the matter is like, well, one, the news is always kind of, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. We say this to our team. It's not their fault. They're always like, I don't know, 6 weeks behind. 4 to 8 weeks behind, I would say 6 to 8 weeks behind, somewhere in there. Like, and so one of the things that I say to our team all the time is, look, we're so in it and we're helping so many families that we can pivot with what's going on in the market. So we've actually been talking about kind of the market slow. Even on these Zoom calls, even on these videos, we've been talking about it for a month, and now you're starting to see all those, maybe even a little bit longer. And the reality is here's what it went from. It went from like hair on fire craziness, 20 offers on listing, not every listing, but 20 offers on listings and people bidding up and all this crazy stuff. And it's just like come down to instead of you getting 10 offers on a house, you're getting 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that's still a really good market. It just isn't as crazy as what it was. Right.
And let's be real, it is a hot market. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it, right? And it's not, like you said, the hair on fire it was 60 days ago. And that's okay. Honestly, that's okay. And it's okay for buyers. It's okay for sellers. It's okay for both. And again, like you were saying, with the sellers, we're getting maybe 2 offers, maybe 3 offers instead of 20. But those offers are very good and they're up at the peak. They're not, the real estate is not going down, if that makes sense.
Correct.
Conversely, we've got buyers that are getting offers accepted where they're writing offers with similar terms 90 days ago, and they weren't even getting looked at. Right.
Yeah.
We had people coming in saying, hey, we, as agents saying, when we're writing offers, we're requiring full appraisal waivers, we're requiring no inspection, we're requiring blah, 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 blah. And we had buyers that just could not match that or were uncomfortable matching that.
Tell them to grow up. Just go ahead and say it.
Logan. Thanks, Logan.
Logan, grow up. That's what he wants to say. All right.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a better market for the buyer that is serious, who wants to find a home for them and their family. And they may not be able to go with a full appraisal waiver or whatever that looks like, because we don't need to at this point with most of the homes out there. Not all the time, but most of the homes out there with the bid situations we're in, we're not seeing the need to go to just excess extremes. Like we're going to name our firstborn after the sellers.
Yeah.
Which we've seen in offers. Yep. Funny enough. But
I haven't personally, but it's some of those war stories. But anyway, the look, even when the market was hair on fire, to be honest with you, we were having conversations like, hey, this is still simultaneously a seller's market and a buyer's market. In any traditional sense, it was a seller's market. Now, by the way, just so you guys know, that this is how we define seller's market versus buyer's market. We base it on months of inventory, meaning if no other homes hit the market, how long would it take the entire inventory to sell off? So let me give you some
those numbers.
Yeah. So here's the numbers on that. Usually a balanced market is, call it 6 months. It's like there's like exactly as many buyers as sellers out there, give or take. Nothing's ever perfect, right? Anything above that, kind of call it 7 month mark, it starts to swing into more of a buyer market, meaning there's more houses for sale than there are people buying them. So you're in a buyer's market. The longer that inventory gets. By the way, the height of the recession, what was the longest the inventory got?
Oh God, years.
Yeah.
Years. I mean, and depending on what price point you were in, the average was around 2 to 2.5 years. It was kind of hovering.
Yeah.
And I remember going on an appointment with a seller in Bloomfield at one point, in that maybe I think we were looking at like 1.8 or 1.85 range, which we did end up selling the home. But we looked, and it was so egregious. It was over 30 years of inventory in that segment of the market.
Yeah.
Like one home was selling per month, and there were 400 or 500 homes on the market. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy number. Yeah.
Just to put into context just how crazy 2008 was. It's like sometimes we get a little shaky about the market. We want to compare now to then. It's like just to put that into context. Anyway.
Well, and when we're looking at
go ahead.
Yeah, just to be clear, months of inventory is from this exact moment. If 0 homes come on the market, how long would it take for every home on the market to be bought?
Right.
Yeah.
So anything below, call it 5 months, you enter into seller market territory. I think at the peak of this seller's market, we were kind of like, what do you think? 3 week, 4 week?
Yeah, actually, and that's exactly right. We've been hovering between, and the data always shows in points, by the way that I pull it. So like a 0.6 month to a 0.8 month.
Yeah.
And then just in July, we've moved back up to a 1.3 month.
Yeah.
Which again is not a huge increase, but it's enough that it's just a little bit of pressure relief for buyers that are out there.
But so here's some more context. We're at 1.3 locally, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And I think nationally, NAR just put out, National Association of Realtors just put out nationwide. It's like 2.6, 2.8, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I in the ballpark? Okay. Anyway, it's
here's some good questions.
Yeah.
All right, let's throw these up there because this involves a moratorium, which is good.
The answer is no. You can sell a home with a non-paying tenant.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's much more difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It is, because then I mean, and yes, you can sell it, but no, it doesn't force the tenant out. But if another person or another, purchaser, investor, landlord is willing to take the risk on how much longer the moratorium is going to go on, they might take that. It would probably be at a price discount because of the risk involved.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
A significant price discount, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if this were me, and I don't know the full scenario, so in full disclosure, I don't know your full scenario, Suzette. And I know you've been on here a few times, and and this has been frustrating, and they keep on kind of delaying the eviction processes. They were supposed to, anyway, they keep on delaying it for landlords out there. I would go to that tenant and I would buy them out. Hey, right now as it stands, you owe me $15,000 in rent. If you move out, I will not sue you for it. And I'll give you $1,000 to move out. It's like at some point you cut your losses, which is, or you can let this keep going on. By the way, in neither it's, or you can keep on, let this keep on going on, and hopefully eventually they allow you, the courts open back up and they allow you to evict people. Obviously they've done this. I mean, it's just like anything else. Anytime there's a policy, people take advantage of it. I think by and large, it's been a positive policy in keeping people in homes. It's been bad for landlords. But sometimes that's how it goes. There's winners and losers of policies when you look at the bigger picture. But anyway, I would be very frustrated about that as well. And it's like, or your other option is, you keep on delaying this and eventually you sue that person and you'd win, right? I mean, you're going to win. Yeah. You're going to win, but it's like, but then and then over the course of time, you're going to have to collect on that. You're going to have to collect on that. And so here's the other thing. You're saying they over $40,000 to you. It's a higher end rental. Well, the truth of the matter is like, okay, if they're a higher end rental and they're not paying you, what else aren't they paying? And so what their game plan might be is they might be planning on declaring bankruptcy. It's like, if they're not paying anything, they're not paying the cars, if they're not paying their credit cards, if they're not, and they're just kind of riding this thing out. Yeah, I don't know what their full scenario is, but like, even if you sued them and they declared bankruptcy, you'd get nothing. So it's like, at some point, do you work a deal out with them just to get them out?
Well, and I'm looking because, and one thing that I've been trying to find, and honestly, Suzette, if you give me your email or something, I can look this up later and get this information to you. With this last extension, they did go down to the county level, which includes Wayne County. I do know that, but I'm not certain which other counties were or were not extended. It's based on COVID transmission rate. And I think Oakland County, there was no extension. And now I'm not 100% positive, but I'm fairly certain that one is not on the list. I know Wayne County is on the list because there were some high caseloads coming in the city of Detroit proper. So they put that county on. But I don't know about Oakland if the rental's located there. Even that has risk though, Mike. If you run into a really like compassionate judge for the tenant, I mean, that could not go your way too. Yeah. If you email us, we've got some contacts for some attorneys that we really trust, and I would talk to them. But if this were me, I don't even know. That's a lot of money. Yeah, and there's a second half to this as well. The part that no one's really talked about, I'm going to throw this out there, and again, I'm not as familiar with it as I could be. Yeah. Between the different, I don't know, COVID relief bills or whatever you want to call it, there was a cumulative total of $14 billion set aside for tenants to go and get to be able to pay rents, even if it's a subsidized rent, some sort of a rent. To date, as of the end of last month, only 3% of that on a national level has been taken. Now, what happened was, and this is where I think the government made the mistake, in my opinion. And again, not going political, just saying it because the things either work or they don't, right? Well, so sure. If 3% of the $14 billion has been used, that's a problem. That means to me it's not working. So the federal government took the money, put it into the states' hands, all 50 states, and said, do with it how you will, what you will, distribute it to the people that need it so they can keep on paying their rent, whatever that looks like, Mr. State of Michigan, right? Now, from there, the state of Michigan is holding on to this money, and they haven't dispersed it. They just haven't. So one thing I would look at is maybe encouraging that tenant to call the state of Michigan, seeing if they can find their way into where those funds exactly are. And maybe that's a project I'll work on this week as well, is seeing if I can figure out where that money is and see if there's a way to unlock it, because you're not the only one.
Yeah. That might be a good little kind of info piece to get out.
Yeah.
She's saying it's income and zip code dependent, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
These kind of things typically are, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And there's Zach on there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go with him.
I agree with Zach.
That's the thing, though. It's unfortunate. Cash for keys will always be cheaper than an eviction.
I've done that multiple times.
Now, here's the problem: is an eviction might run her, an eviction start to finish might run her $1,200, right?
Sure.
But she's owed $40. It's like, oh well. I would have a conversation with an attorney. That's what I would do.
Absolutely.
Seriously what I would do. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, because my guess is other people are also experiencing it, and there's been some experience there. It's like, okay, well, what do you recommend? What are my options here?
Agreed.
Yeah. How are you handling what we hear 5 times a day? I know I could get a ton for my home right now, but where would I go? And wouldn't I be paying a ton for a new home?
Yeah. I can kind of let me navigate this one a little bit and then add on to it. I'm gonna leave that up there. Logan, that's a great question. So I mean, and you're right. We're all hearing it, right? And as sellers, it could be a little bit daunting because we know we can get the home on the market and sold, but then where do we go as a seller? How we've been handling this with our sellers is saying, okay, let's get the home market ready, right? Let's get the photos done. Let's get the virtual tour done. Let's get the 3D tour done. Whatever projects that we need to do, paint a couple rooms, maybe replace some carpet. Let's work our way through that process so that we're market ready and not on the market. Mm-hmm. And then let's turn around and go see some homes, because the fact is there are actually more homes out there than it looks. It's just the speed of them coming on and off the market makes it feel like less. Mm-hmm. Like a good example is, we had over 14,500 homes come on the market in Metro Detroit last month. Now we had 11,000 sold, which means that there's been some pressure relief, but it makes the market look like there's only 2,000 homes on the market, which is a fifth of a normal market. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily that there are less homes, it's that the velocity of sale is moving so fast. If it looks like so usually I just tell sellers, and I'm just really honest with them. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, on a day-to-day basis, if you go on Zillow or you go on realtor.com or you go on any website, it looks like there's nothing there. But the reality is homes are popping up and going off in 48 to 72 hours. Mm-hmm. The number of homes are there. They're just moving faster. Mm-hmm. Let's go find your next home first, get that offer accepted. And then the minute we get that offer accepted and we can do a little bit of an extended closing, maybe like a 5-week closing, then we're going to get your home on the market that week, get the open house done, and get your home sold. 8,000 home sales later, we've never had a seller go without a home. We've never had a seller go homeless. And then the second part of the question, sure, absolutely. If you're going in the same market, let's call it, I don't know, Berkeley to Royal Oak, or, I don't know, Novi to Northville. Yeah, Novi went up, Northville went up. It just is what it is. Yeah. But what one thing does hold true is the interest rates are super low, and we are not going to be able to take advantage of these interest rates much longer.
Yeah, kind of the market that you sell in is the market that you buy in. The market that you buy in is the market that you sell in, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a few, if you're going out of state, there are a few micro markets where you might be able to pick up a little gain, or you might lose a little more, let's just call it. Like in Michigan, we had a very large ramp up in sales prices right up until, even now, right? But let's say our sales prices were accelerated all the way through January, February. But talking with an agent over in Boise, they didn't see their huge ramp up even begin until January. And we were already almost a year into our huge ramp up, right? So say if somebody was selling here in December and moving to Boise, which we did have, which is why I was on the phone with that agent, they picked up a couple of bucks. But now Boise is extremely popular, and average sales price is up $100,000 this year.
Yeah. Here's how I'm handling that, Logan. And this is the honest conversation I'm having with anybody who's thinking about selling their house and moving. It's the honest conversation. And so Logan's asking from the perspective of a real estate professional, and I'm talking to not only real estate professionals, but I'm also talking to clients when I say this. I want to know why they're moving. Because if they're downsizing, then it's a no-brainer. Watch this. If home prices are up by 20%, right? And they're moving and they're in a $400,000 home, that means that their home is now worth $480 because it's inflated by 20%. Agreed?
Yeah.
And if they're downsizing to a $300,000 home, what it would have been 2 years ago, a $300,000 home, now they're paying $360, which means that by downsizing, they're netting positive $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that's downsizing right now, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. Okay. For someone that's moving because really for the most part, people are either upsizing or downsizing. That's why they're moving. They're either upsizing or downsizing. If I super generalize it. Okay. Well, if they're upsizing it, why are you moving?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it because you need another bathroom? Because you got a bunch of daughters running around? Is it because you have a baby on the way? Is it because you got a promotion at work and so there's a lifestyle change going on? Is it because there's a lifestyle thing where you want to be on a lake or a golf course? Like I want to know why. So why are you thinking about moving? It's because you don't like your neighbors? Because none of that stuff is going away. So then that conversation becomes, okay, well, I guess we could try to time the market, but you're telling me that you guys need another bathroom. What's going on? And then they go, well, our mornings are chaos because, we're having to share the sink and we're having to do this, we're having to do that. It's like real life for families, right? Some of you guys grew up in a house like that. I grew up in a house like that where we shared all one shower. You know what I mean? And so, and then I'm just going to ask them the question. And I would ask a client the same question. I'd ask anybody the same question. Great. How long are you willing to do that? Right? And then I might even take it to an extreme. Are you willing to do that for another 5 years? What? No, I'm not doing that for 5 years. Okay. Are you willing to do it for another 3 years? What? Yeah. No. Okay. Are you willing to do it another year? Maybe. Okay. Well, then the difference between the market now and the market in a year, one, you're not going to be able to time it anyway. And two, you have an actual need. Let's talk about getting your home on the market that you buy in is the market that you sell in. That's the conversation I have. Okay.
Yeah. And frankly, I usually go to the logic side of it and make a plan because I feel like people feel better. I feel better when I have a plan.
Yeah.
Austin goes to the the family need side of it or the emotional side of it, which is absolutely true. I mean, logic tells you what to do, but the actual why, the actual need, has you actually do a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, there's a reason why people started thinking about moving in the first place. I don't need the room anymore. I need more room. Yeah.
Can I dive into communication? I love talking about communication.
Let's do it.
Because we're all either left brain or right brain. Now I forget which one is which. Is left brain logic and right brain more emotional?
We'll go with it. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Well, let's just get it right. Left brain versus right brain. If you're most okay. Right brain is your emotional side, like feelings, visualization, imagination, intuition, rhythm, arts. Your left brain is thinking in words, sequencing, linear, mathematics, that kind of stuff.
Stop the bus. Wait, speaking of arts.
Yeah.
Did you see who's headlining Arts, Beats, and Eats?
Oh, yeah. All right. Tell us more.
Oh, Stone Temple Pilots. Guys, Arts, Beats, and Eats is back September 3rd to September 6th, right here in downtown Royal Oak, right going up and down Washington. The headliner is Stone Temple Pilots, and I got to tell you, I don't know if you've been, but it's pretty fantastic. I would highly advise everybody to go. It's like $3 or $6 or whatever it is, depending on the time of day to get in. The first time I went, I saw Salt and Pepper.
All right.
Sorry. Shameless plug for a really nice event.
It's a good event. What's your favorite STP song?
Oh, God.
Didn't he die? Didn't the lead singer die? Scott Weiland or whatever. Did he die?
Did.
Yeah. Okay.
He did. He had a couple of substance issues, right?
Maybe. I don't remember. I don't. GNR at Comerica. That's hilarious.
That's a good one.
Concerts are back. I had a couple of
Concerts
friends
are
go to Chris Stapleton last night over at Pine Knob, or what's it? DT.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a DT. Yeah, this was a good time.
For no good reason, but they were there. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I'm clearly there.
Chris Stapleton?
No.
Oh,
no. You're right. Chris Stapleton's awesome.
You couldn't be more wrong. That guy's great. Anyway,
yeah. Hey, Dave Matthews is coming this week, or whatever this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So left brain, right brain, getting back, right? So
right. Let's get back to
left brain is your like logic side, and right brain is like your arts and feeling side. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now here's the thing, you guys. When you're communicating with another human being, you have to satisfy their dominant side first. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. If you have someone that's like super logical, very linear thinker, you can't, if you're looking to have a conversation and be able to communicate what you're looking to influence to that person, or if you're looking to communicate to that person, you can't start with the emotion, because they'll tune you out, because their logic side has not been satisfied, and that's their dominant right? They need their dominant trait satisfied. So instead, if you're communicating with a logical thinker, you first have to talk the logic in the sequence of things, right? Here's the logic of something. Then once that's satisfied, then you can go to the emotional side, right? Yeah. Vice versa. If you're working with somebody that's a more emotional communicator, right, or a more emotional thinker, you first have to satisfy their feeling. Now, oftentimes it's just as simple when you're talking to someone like that. Their need to be heard. It's like, just let them. They just need to be heard. They need to talk to you. We need to talk about the feelings. And then once that's kind of been satisfied and that's off their chest, now we can talk facts and figures, and now they can be receptive to that conversation. So, by the way, neither one of what we're doing is bad. It's just Mike is more of a logical thinker. I tend to be more of an emotional thinker. And so Mike's primary is he wants to satisfy an argument with facts, right? And so oftentimes when I communicate, and I have to be cognizant of it the other way, I have to be cognizant of, like, I need to be able to not only have the emotional conversation, but back it up with facts. Anyway, left brain, right brain.
Yeah, and how this also shows up in a different way. If anybody's ever taken a DISC test, which is not a bad thing, Tony Robbins has a free one. That's okay. It's not wonderful. There are a couple of free ones out there. Left brain thinkers tend to be like the high D or the high C on opposite ends of the spectrum there. Yeah. And then the emotional thinkers tend to be a higher S or a higher I, right? Well, higher I or higher S. And frankly, it's just good to know who you're talking to. So you can talk to somebody on their level instead of trying to bring them to your level, right? At least in my opinion.
That's a great point. We talk about the golden rule all the time, right? Treat others how you want to be treated. But it's actually the platinum rule. You got to treat people how they want to be treated.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If you can do that, you can connect with other human beings.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Yeah. Salt and peppers here. You know, there's a really proud moment that happened. What, about 4 years ago now, with Mega Camp. So Mega Camp, for those of you who don't know, so we belong to a larger organization called Keller Williams. And Keller Williams they do two big events a year. They do something called Family Reunion. It's usually in like February. Actually, they usually do it around Valentine's Day. So it's like this whole mess. Anyway, and then they do a thing called Mega Camp in the summer, August, September, somewhere in there. Yeah. And it's a great like learning event. Like, one of the cool things about our culture as a larger company, and I think we do it, even what we're doing today is within the spirit of that, is like everybody's willing to share information with everybody else, and everybody can grow stronger. It's a mindset of abundance, like I can, versus lack. I don't need to hold on to everything, because there's plenty enough for everybody, so I can be abundant and I can love enough other people enough to share information. Anyway, so they do Mega Camp, and they do a all the top agents in the country speak on different topics, and it's a great way to learn things. So it sounds to me like they canceled it in person.
Yeah. So Gary, well, in the backstory on this is Gary's been not fighting. That's not a good word to say, but Gary's been trying to work with the city of Austin to be able to host at least a mini mega agent camp. So instead of the usual like 8 or 10 or 12,000 agents that go, which is about right, at least let's get 500 or 1,000 or even 1,500. And then he had gotten it up to, I think, around 1,500. And then like with the Delta variant and the restrictions that Austin, the city, was putting on, and he just finally said, you know what, this is enough. We're just going to move this to virtual. We're just going to cancel the event. The city requirements just became too big on the convention center to be able to handle, to be worthwhile for 1,500 people to come in for a 2-day event. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's cool. So anyway, about 4 years ago, there was the big hurricane hit Houston.
Yes.
I don't know what the hurricane name was.
I don't remember.
I don't either. But this big old hurricane hit Houston, and the whole city was flooded, and the whole thing. And it happened to coincide right with the time that 15,000 agents from all over the country were kind of descending into Austin, Texas. And so what they did is they canceled this event, and instead they loaded up everybody onto buses in, I don't know how many volunteers it was, 10,000 volunteers bussed over to Houston, Texas for 3 days.
Yep.
And just helped with that cleanup effort. And it was really an incredible thing. One of the other things that KW does is we have an organization called KW Cares. As a matter of fact, we're proud of it. We donate a portion of all of our closings. We don't talk about it a lot, but we donate a portion of all of our closings to KW Cares in those efforts. But they keep warehouses all over the country of like goods and all this stuff that where they can go and provide relief aid. Like at a moment's notice, we get there faster than FEMA is kind of we like to say that a lot. But anyway, so it's kind of a cool thing. It's giving back to the community on a national level. We also do things locally on the local level. But anyway, Mega Camp. It's crazy to cancel that event and send 10,000 people. So anyway, so look, one of the things that Gary Keller does very well. Gary Keller is the CEO of Keller Williams, or the founding father of Keller Williams, whatever you want to call him, the visionary. It's like he always does things to put the agents in the best possible position. And the fact of the matter is, if he's canceling this event, that's why. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I love bagels is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think what we're going to find, just because, frankly, because some of the flights, because these events people book out, 6 months in advance, they get their flights, they get their hotels, stuff like that. I think some people are just going to go anyway. I think some people just need to get out of town for a minute. They already have this booked, and I've seen a couple of groups, a couple of the agents are going to take advantage of this and maybe meet and do kind of a mini mastermind anyway. Yeah. One thing I am seeing is the Northwest regions, a couple of different Keller Williams regions are putting together something in Vegas, because Vegas has a lot looser restrictions. I've heard North Florida and South Florida are putting something on in conjunction with Georgia. So those 3 regions, so we're still going to be we are still the learning based, education based, let's move forward real estate company for sure. It just looks different than it used to.
Yeah. Yep.
That's right. We pivot, we change.
Yep.
We do what we need to do.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Hey, can we talk a little bit about the with Delta, what are the home showing rules for health safety?
And that's a great question. So there have not been any official guidelines that have come out that are let's call them laws or rules or executive orders or any of that regarding home showings. So as of now, home showings, at least here in Michigan, and I can't speak for every state, but here in Michigan have remained unchanged.
Yeah.
Now let's open that up a little more. If you're an agent or you're a client, you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, wear a mask. If it's not a huge thing for you, don't wear a mask. If you feel more comfortable with fewer people in the home, then do that.
Yeah.
As sellers, if you feel more comfortable spacing out the showings further, let's do that. We can do that. So I think we're at the point of more of just a common sense based on your situation type of a thing. I mean, and I'll speak for myself. Both my parents are vaccinated, and my mom has MS.
Yeah,
this is what it is, which is, of many, many things. It's also an autoimmune disorder, right? So her white blood cell count is lower than normal. That's one of the effects of MS, and more particularly my mother's MS. So she's more susceptible to things with or without a vaccine. If there's a percentage of people that would get COVID even with the vaccine, she's more likely to fall into that percentage. So I personally limit the amount of contact I have with people as far as in close spaces, mostly to people that I know, if that makes sense, or people I know that are healthy. But again, that's just me, and that's just a common sense, guideline for me.
Yeah. When COVID really hit, like we were only able to have one family at a time, and everybody, we would go around. The conversation we were having with sellers is we'd go around and during a showing, turn on all the lights and disinfect afterwards and all that. And the science is not back to that up. And so now it's kind of, but we do have sellers that go, hey, look, if I'm going to allow somebody in my home, I want to require masking. And if that's the case, we make sure we leave booties at the door and we leave masks at the door and have hand sanitizer at the door. So we're pretty accommodating with that, but it's pretty well open right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty well open.
Yeah. Good question.
It is a good question. Yeah. Hey, do you have an update on what's going on with the foreclosure stuff?
About 90% of foreclosures and evictions are on an additional 60-day moratorium.
Okay.
There's about 10% of the country, and again, it's down to county-based and everything else. 10% of the country can move forward with them. 90% cannot. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, back in the old market, I used to do a lot of work with what was called broker price opinions, BPOs, where banks that had homes that were heading towards foreclosure, they would want somebody like a local agent, essentially, to get out and do some sort of a CMA, like a glorified market analysis in a way, right? And a lot of the times what they would ask is like if the property were roughed up pretty badly, what would be the value? If it's okay, what would be the value? And if it was completely turnkey and everything was redone, new kitchen, new bathrooms, new this, was the value? I got my first call for that this week, back from one of the old servicers. And I'm going to tell you, Austin, it was a very different conversation than what we had before. Okay. And I thought that was really interesting. And this is something I think we're talking about. So before, they would say, okay, we want you to go do a price opinion, we'll pay a couple of bucks to do it. And later on in life, they would say, when we evict them and when we take the property, you have a shot of selling the home, and you will be the agent that gets it. Yeah. Right? That was the verbiage they were using. I paid particular attention to this call, and it was very different. It was hey, you're going to do this, and in all likelihood, you're never going to see any future business from this. Right now we're trying to assess the property to see what we can do to modify the mortgage, and we need a third party to tell us where the value is, so we know whether or not we need to add on PMI or not, things like that. We don't need a full appraisal, but we just need a rough estimate at this time, so we know what kind of loan to modify this person into.
I see. Okay.
Very different conversation.
Why do you think that is?
And the person kind of clued me in that this person was about 8 months behind on payments, and they were trying to work with them and figure out whether or not they want to add a specific number of payments to the back and then forgive some interest and then add some to the principal balance, and kind of a combination of that, and try to get that person into a little bit lower payment situation because they were still above a 4% interest rate. They had never taken advantage of the refi, and they couldn't because they were out of work, because you need to actually have a job to refi, right? And they were trying to work them into something that made sense to keep them in the home. And this is just goes back to, in the old market and previous to this, right? So 2006, previous all the way to the Land Before Time, the answer was foreclose on the home, right?
Yeah, they wanted to get people out of the house. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we saw that all the way back to the 1930s. So in the Great Recession, and this is where a lot of our protective laws come from for people, which are probably good, which I think are good. During the Great Recession in the 30s. Okay, so essentially, and here's how this worked. So coming out of World War I, we put all these restrictions and rules on Germany, which included this amazingly monstrous payback of funds, war reparations for everything that was done. It buoyed the European economy, which in turn it buoyed the U.S. economy right up until the inflection point in Germany, like where enough was enough. Inflation had just gone too high, where people couldn't afford anything, and Germany itself, the new German chancellor, said, "We're done with this. We're just not even going to make any more payments." So all of that income that was flowing through Europe, through the U.S., into the various stock markets stopped. In addition to that, you had a bunch of people buying on margin, and like 90% margin, because you could do that back then. So if I gave you $1, like to put into the stock market as a bank, you would give me 9 on top of that. So I would own $10 worth of stock.
Sure.
But the problem is, if the stock goes down 10%, all of my money is gone. If it goes down 15%, now your money is gone. And that's a problem, right?
Yep.
So this was all happening. And then there was a run on the banks for cash because they needed to go pay the stockbrokers back that they were buying on margin and loaning the money from. And the banks themselves didn't have the money because the majority of their money was loaned out on mortgages. Back then, there was a due on notice clause in the mortgages, which is now illegal. And what I mean by that is, like, a bank, literally, I'm not kidding you, put a guy on a bike with a telegram, like a messenger, and sent them up and down the neighborhood and saying, okay, these 16 homes, you got to pay your full mortgage back, and you got 30 days to do it. We're calling the note due. Right?
We need the money back. Sure.
We need the money, and we need it right now. And this created this global economic collapse. And this is kind of how this worked in order of things. During the later 30s and then the early 40s, Roosevelt, with his alphabet soup and among other things, put in a lot of financial protections, saying that, okay, we can no longer call mortgage notes due. It's just too big of a loan. So think about that today. Think about how much you owe on your current mortgage, and think about somebody showing up at your door and knocking on your door saying, hey, all of that money, I need that by the end of the month. Thanks. Right? In that time, we had 25% of all homes owned by a bank, which was a huge number. During this last time, so between then and now, our foreclosure rate was exceptionally low, and banks just didn't have to deal with them on a high level. You know what I mean? And for the most part, and when I say for the most part, I mean 80-90% of the time, they would never actually get to foreclosure because home values had been going up every year through the 40s right up until 2007.
So it was enough to sell the house.
Yeah, so people would just sell the house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And part of that went to, we had a lot of unionized workers in the United States. We had a lot of manufacturing. We had a lot of people where they would work at the same company for 30 years and draw that paycheck. So foreclosure rates were just very, very low. Okay. Then when they ramped up, the banks just did what they normally do. Let's take them to court. Let's kick them out, 4 months late on the payment. In Michigan, in addition, so it takes 1 month to get them through court. So that's month 5. And in Michigan, there's a 6-month redemption period. So that brings us up to month 11 to 13 that they would actually be able to take over the property and then be able to put it on the market and sell it. All the while, that's dead money for the bank, plus the people living there, plus the damage that was done. Plus, let's be real, the bank's got a lot of flack, a lot of negative publicity back then for just kicking people out.
Yeah, sure.
Kicking families and kids out. So this time around, the banks are looking at this from both, not only just a public view level, but they're looking at it from a cost level as well. And they're saying, hey, if we're going to go 11 to 13 months and we can't even touch the money and get payments on it, plus these guys are going to do a bunch of damage, and we got to go back in and do 20 or 30 or 40 or 50,000 repairs, why not just work out some sort of a deal, maybe lose a few bucks in the short term, but we can keep them in the house, which actually makes us more money. And frankly, it makes us look good too. And we can use a positive PR right now.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a really long-winded explanation. Sorry.
No, I got it. But the overall theme is, right, before we didn't have the precedents or infrastructure. And so what the banks would do is they would just like either one or two things happen. They'd either foreclose people quickly kind of after, or they would home prices were going up and up where it's like you never had to foreclose. You just sold the house.
You sold the house.
Right? Or even if it was like, but anyway, and then that got flipped on its head. And so all these banks had to develop policies. And now they've, at this point, got well-established policies. So what you're saying is you think that mass foreclosure event, just like the mass event that happened back in the crash in the 20s with everything on margin, and they eliminated those laws, right? Made that illegal. What you're saying is that mass foreclosure event was a once in a lifetime event.
Yes. And it happened once in their lifetime and then once in our lifetime.
Yeah.
I think
and
the big
now
difference is we lived through this already. Like the people that are higher up and are more in charge of this, they lived through the last one and they were already working in that sector. They may not have been the CEOs or the CFOs or the COOs or any of the C-suite employees, but those guys are now C-suite employees, right? The guys from 15 years ago that were working in banking.
Yeah.
So they saw, maybe on a lower level, but they saw, because, CEO turnover in that space is every 4 to 6 years. So those CEOs have then, like if you look at Wells Fargo and Bank of America, and Country doesn't exist anymore, but the third bank, Huntington Bank, all those CEOs have turned over twice between then and now. But people that are CEOs for the most part were already with those banks at that time. They'd just been working up the system. So they lived through this and they saw it, and they saw that the devastation it brought to families, and they also saw the monetary loss at their own banks. And they're the guys. These are the guys that were, not to use an offensive term, but let's just call it the bean counters of the time, who did all the math and was like, man, this is not working out. If I were CEO, this is how I would do this. Well, now they're CEO, and now they're choosing a different path.
Yeah, yeah. So,
all right, too many tangents.
No, it's really good. No, it's really, really, really good. That was a once in a lifetime event, and now they have policies in place where that's not going to happen. And they're doing things to keep people in homes. By and large, whenever a policy is made, the number one goal is to keep people in their homes. It's like the government doesn't want to displace families, especially if they're homeowners.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, in this current iteration, they're even doing it with renters. Like, for the most part, policies are meant to keep families in homes. And then so what would your advice be to someone that's saying, like, look, I'm waiting for things to crash, or I'm waiting for foreclosures to hit the market?
I'd say go buy a house.
Why?
Home value, because today is the lowest price you're going to be able to get it at.
Why?
Home prices are still going up. If we look at the numbers national numbers between June and July alone, home values went up $16,000 on average, about $14,000 here in Michigan. Home values will go up. Like right now, our average sales price in Michigan, in Southeast Michigan, is $291,000, up from $244,000 12 months ago, right? It is what they're just facts. Economists are predicting that here in Southeast Michigan, the U of M economists, and they're actually pretty darn good, that we're going to see sales prices eclipse 311 by the end of the year, or at the end of the year. So we're going to see yet another $20,000 increase between now and the end of the year. Are we going to see another $50,000 increase? No, but it will still be 20. Next year, we're going to see an 8, maybe 10% increase. We're not going to see a 20 or a 25% increase, I don't think, at least, like we did over the last year. But we will see a steady Eddie, 8 to 10. And then we're going to start, and in my opinion, this is what I see based on all of the economics, and not just housing, but all of the data points. We're going to fall into a 3 to 6% appreciation pretty much every year after that for the next 10, as we're waiting for wages to grow. Because there's the other sticking point. Wages have grown substantially in the last couple of years. They honestly, they just have. And this is now starting to hit the news on a higher level. You can find these articles, but not as fast as home values. Because when you look at wages for 3 years ago versus today, they grew 18%, right? Mm-hmm. Which sounds really nice and sounds really close to the 25% homes grew. But don't forget, home values are generally 4 to 6 times someone's total wage for the year. So it's 18% of a much smaller number. 20% on a home growth is actually a very big number. 18% on a job growth on a wage growth is not necessarily the biggest number in the world. I'm going way too deep into this. But
no, you're not. I think it's great. I think it's great. By the way, we're making predictions. It's not like we don't know this.
No hard and fast rule. There's no hard and fast rule.
There's no hard and fast. But here's what we can do: is we can learn the historical things, right? And because that tells the story, and we can take a look at what's actually happening in the economy. And what's actually happening in the economy is there's no inventory. Affordability versus wages is in a good spot. Although we're starting to creep up. We're starting to hit some ceilings there.
Yeah.
Rates are getting low. The government has been consistent with their monetary policy for the last, good Lord, 10 years at least. On keeping the monetary policy low.
This is it, right? So the foreclosure and the two basic reasons why we're not going to see the foreclosure run up is, let's call it 99-ish, 2000-ish. We had some major mortgage policy changes, right? AKA non-conforming loans or negam loans, negative amortization loans, where your principal actually went up every month instead of down. The bank would, instead of charging you interest direct, they would just put it in as principal on top, right?
Yeah.
None of that exists. For the last 10, 12 years, it exists. And it still doesn't.
Yeah, look, for the most part, the lending policy, although we have a very liberal lending policy comparatively to the rest of the world, but the lending policy has been really conservative. It's like it's low. Although you're starting to see a little bit more risk enter the market, but not enough where it's concerned. They're not just, okay, cool, you can fog a mirror with your breath. Great, I'll give you money. Again, another comparison, like they were doing some crazy things, to the run up of 08, 09. Like they were doing some crazy things. They were doing things like you could state your income. You could call the bank and you could say, hey, here's the deal. I want to buy a house for $400,000 and I'm a teacher and I make $140,000 a year. You could state your income.
Yeah. And here's how the bank would check that. If they could find a place in the United States on monster.com where it showed that teachers were within 20% of the 140,000 anywhere in the US, they'd say, okay, yeah, that works. I'm not kidding. This is how they did this stuff. Craziness to me.
Yeah. It's like,
but you know what? They did it and it happened. And that 8 or 10% of homes or loans that went into foreclosure back then do not exist today.
Right.
So those guys are gone. The second part is, we've got 2.2 million homeowners that are in some sort of a distressed state, 90 days or more late on their payments. But again, here's the other side of it. We're looking at the Mortgage Brokers Association. They just had their conference 3 weeks ago, and they came out swinging saying, hey, look, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Huntington, Fifth Third, Fannie, Freddie, all of these guys have beefed up their servicing department in advance of the moratorium, which actually was extended, not to foreclose on people, but the servicing side are the people that communicate with the mortgage holders. The intention being, let's get into communication with these guys and figure out how to keep them in the home.
Yeah.
And the other reason is you've got, and let's just say that we do have, 500,000 properties go to foreclosure. Let's say of the 2.2 million, 20% of them make it through the entire cycle and make it onto the market. And it sounds like a big number. But last year, there were 5.4 million homes that were sold/bought. So what are we looking at? A 10% increase?
Mm-hmm.
It's already a super hot market. We're already at 1.3 months of inventory. So what do? Go from 1.3 to 1.6? 1.7?
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about a big bump here. We're talking about under 10% of the total home sales for the year in a market that's still missing 20 million homes that were never built because the builders didn't exist between 2010 to 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go even deeper with that. So
you're breaking up.
I'm breaking up.
Oh, you're back. Okay, go ahead.
And going even farther with it, Wells Fargo and Bank of America have already cut deals with BlackRock. So BlackRock is back. They're a huge investment firm, right? They're a huge investment firm, right? They own hundreds of warehouses across the U.S. They do a lot of work with Amazon, and they're big real estate players, right? Back in the old market, they were buying hundreds of homes every month, rehabbing them, either selling them or renting them. They got out of the game back in 14 or 15 because they felt the home values were a little bit too high. Here's how optimistic they are about home values. They're back in the game and buying homes again. And not only that, but they cut deals with the two biggest servicers of mortgages that they'll just buy it instead of it going on the market. Mm-hmm. So those homes are not going to be on the market. There's every reason why not. Emotionally, we want this because we're looking at the home prices and we're saying, man, I wish I bought that home a year ago or 2 years ago when it was 20% or 30% cheaper. And sure, all the shoulda, woulda, couldas in the world isn't going to change what happened and what is happening right now. And the reality is, don't let the shoulda, woulda, couldas have you sit on the fence and not purchase a property and not get your mortgage interest deduction, not be paying off principal on a loan, and not realize that equity that you're building for the next 10% of appreciation. Mm-hmm. That would be the travesty. Mm-hmm. Instead of waiting for a foreclosure market that's not going to happen.
I just don't think it's going to happen. There's no inventory. So learn the lesson. It's just, That
was a lot of words.
No. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah. And this is what I do on the team. I watch all of this stuff so I can see what's coming down the tracks. So I know how to best, I know what we need to do to make sure our agents are in the best position to service the clients the best they can be.
Yeah. And then what I do is I take all that information and translate it into a way that people can understand it.
Yeah.
No, it's really good. I'm teasing you. I no, for real, you did awesome. That was an amazing explanation about how we ended up here. It's an incredible explanation.
I think I'm confusing myself.
Like you got to take that clip.
Anybody else?
No. You got to take that clip.
Yeah, that's a good clip.
That's a really good clip.
Yeah. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. What else, guys? We got 3 minutes. Thank you, Rashid.
3 minutes. What you got?
I'm thinking about going. So our anniversary is August 22nd. I think I'm going to go up north. I think I'm going to do Sutton's Bay. You ever stayed anywhere Sutton's Bay, like that area? Like up in the Leelanau Peninsula? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we used to go to Clovis every year and stay out just outside the peninsula and go up to Sutton's Bay. What do you think? Yeah, Grand Traverse is nice. The peninsula is nice.
I know. It's really good up there. I know. The problem is just everything's booked. It's good. Everything's booked.
Yeah. Really, I don't know. Call Derek. He knows. He's from there.
Does he know? Oh, that's a good point. He knows.
Yeah. Thanks, Suzette. I appreciate it.
What'd she say?
Thank you for giving a current pulse of the market.
Oh, yeah, you got it. God, I feel bad for you, Suzette. I would. It's kind of one of those that I wish you would have 6 months ago just paid those people to get out. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, but I get it. I get it because you keep on, as a landlord, you keep on thinking like, oh, they're going to push this off. Oh, they're going to push this off. Others, Yeah,
I get it. And it just amazes me. And I'm probably going to be unpopular for this, but that's okay. It amazes me how strong the job market is. And yet they're still putting these moratoriums out there. And I get it. And I on a logical level, I understand Delta variant. I understand blah, 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 blah. I understand all this. But at the same time, that jobs report, we added 943,000 jobs. 943,000 jobs last month. That's an amazing jobs report.
Yeah.
I mean, we're fighting. I mean, and I'm talking like on a title company level, even just looking at that, we're fighting to find great processors. And, we're paying 20% more than we did 3 years ago.
Yeah, we really are. Yeah, for everything. I mean,
yeah. And you're right. And it is for everything. And at the pump. I mean, inflation has run up, but so have the and I don't know about other places, but I was in Plymouth not too long ago. I was in Royal Oak yesterday. everywhere I was in Northville not that long ago, everywhere I go, I see help wanted signs, and people just cannot get enough labor to get in there and work. There is an actual lack of labor right now.
Yeah, the people that want to work are working, no doubt about it. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Good job by you.
Yeah. Ooh, look at all this. It does. It does and it doesn't. It does and it doesn't. So inflation's a two-bladed sword. I'm gonna go off.
I agree with her, as for the most part.
Yeah, Jennifer, I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. Like on the outliers, anytime you make a policy for anything, there's take advantage of the system. It's one of the challenges. It's like, but you can't judge the whole system based on outliers. It's.
Yeah. Okay. So inflation. I mean, if we're talking about real estate inflation and just those prices, absolutely. Or if you invest in gold or whatever it is that you invest in, right? Or stocks or whatever it is. But inflation as a whole, if it runs rampant, can destroy economies. Inflation has in the past created wars, world wars. I mean, all of this stuff is true. So yes, inflation is good, but too much, like anything else, ruins the sauce, right? You're ruining it's putting a little salt in just to get it that little kick, but you put a pound of salt in and you're done. You just ruined it. You ruined it all. And what I mean by that is, like, over the last 30 years, we've seen inflation hover at roughly 2.9%, which is a great level because wages have been very close to matching. So it's good. So sure, a loaf of bread costs, 10 cents back in the 40s, but we're making, $2 a day in wages, working 8 or 10 hour days. Right. So it's all relative, if you will. In June, we saw inflation up at 5.4% for that month. And there was a run up on two big things that affect it, gas and real estate. So that's an inflated 5.4%. What it's doing for us right now, which I like, is it's convinced Janet Yellen to keep interest rates low longer to try to combat inflation, because inflation, that's a problem, and the Fed recognizes that problem, and they're going to keep interest rates low to not just compound that pressure. Which is good for the real estate market. But I mean, if inflation goes too far beyond wages, we're at a place, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we're at a place where, they're making a great wage and they're barely keeping their head above water, and they can't afford a nice family vacation at this time. It's just hard. And I even offered and looked at the budget myself, and I'm like, you're right. All the cuts that can be made have been made to try to figure this thing out. If inflation stays at 4, 5, 6%, but wage growth remains at 3% as the average, that's a problem, because eventually it's like a rubber band. It will keep on expanding, and then one day it will break, and the family will be officially underwater and turn around. They'll have $75,000 in credit card debt and all of that just to live. So inflation is good, and it has to happen, right, for any economy to survive. But too much of it will have a negative backlash. God, I can nerd out on this forever. I'm just trying to keep my answer real small because I know we're low over budget on time.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let's do that. All right, guys. Next, have an inflation chat for about 10 good solid minutes. I know everybody's looking forward to that.
Is that next week? Or are you doing it right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk inflation then.
Yeah. I'll bring my inflation A game. It'll be great.
Love it.
Yeah. Not too much, so nobody's going to fall asleep. Well, Austin might fall asleep.
I might fall asleep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fall asleep either.
Yeah.
Dude, good job by you. This is good this morning. This is great stuff this morning. I appreciate you. We appreciate all you guys. We appreciate all the families that we help. We're helping a lot of families. Mike,
it's so much fun. It is. We are having so much fun helping these families. And one thing I got to do is shout out some of the families that we're serving. We've had just a ton of 5-star reviews come through. If you check out our Google if you Google the Perna team reviews or Michael Perna reviews or whatever it is, 100 reviews, 5-star, and just 18 months ago we were at like 300 reviews on Google, which is amazing. That's a testament to the great agents and frankly great clients that we have. That's awesome.
No, we're really proud of that, and we take that really seriously. We work really hard at it. We work really hard at providing a really great experience for our clients. So I'm glad. Anyhow.
Yeah.
It's good. All right, well, let's do it. Good job, buddy, man.
Good job. Enjoy the day, everybody.
All right, see ya.